Let's talk about religion yet again.
If you are offended by religious jokes, you are a human being. If you are avenging religious jokes, you are a fundamentalist.
ये बहनों ये जो आग लगा रहे हैं टीवी पे उनके जो दृश्य आ रहे हैं ये आग लगाने वाले कौन है उनके कपड़ों से ही पता चल जाता है
हम नहीं जानते हिंदू मुसलमान कौन है कोई कुछ नहीं है वो हमारा अपना है
One side uses the politics of secularism to communalize on religious grounds. The other side allows polarization to run amok.
चुनाव खत्म हो चुके हैं, हिंदू मुसलमान वाला मुद्दा खत्म नहीं हो रहा है.
हिंदू अलग संस्कृति है, मुस्लिम अलग संस्कृति है.
हिंदू मुस्लिम की राजनीति करोगे तो इतिहास आपको माफ नहीं करेगा मेरा मान.
We are back with part 2 because part 1 was clearly not enough for the in-house team of Newslaundry to cater to the popular demand that had come that we must have an episode to talk completely about religion. Well, we're giving you 2. So, welcome, dear panel. Now, the last time most of us were in the studio. Right now, there's only Raman Sir and me. Hello, sir.
Hi.
And joining us on the phone line are Mehraj. Hi, Mehraj.
Hello.
Anand. Hi, Anand.
Hello.
Manisha.
Hi.
And Shardool.
Hello.
In part 1, we had more or less covered.
I mean, it's not logically possible to deny the existence of God. Ironically, it is theologically possible.
When religion goes to a community, it turns into an orthodox dogma.
I think religions basically came up as a revolt against death.
I've seen a lot of women around me who are held back because these so-called religious rituals, and I don't think any book, Mehraj, that way is progressive when it comes to religion for women.
Every horror in our society, you can, kind of connect to caste. Yet, horrors that are way more directly connected to religion, you tend to disconnect the two. A week is a long time in politics. 3 months is a long time in religion. So, before we start this part 2 discussion again, has anyone converted in the last 3 months to any other religion?
No.
Okay.
No.
But as we record this show, I should note that there's this huge controversy of happening in Kashmir of this Sikh girl, and the allegation of the Sikh community is that she was forcibly converted and married at gunpoint to a Muslim guy.
उधर जम्मू में एक सिख बेटी की घर वापसी हो गई है. लड़की का जबरदस्ती बंदूक की नोक पर जबरन निकाह करा दिया गया.
सिख लड़कियों के धर्म परिवर्तन और निकाह का मामला तूल पकड़ता जा रहा है.
There have been in fact several reports of alleged abduction and forcible conversion of girls in Jammu and Kashmir, of Sikh girls specifically in Jammu and Kashmir.
उनका आरोप है कि कश्मीर में आए दिन धर्म कभी अपहरण कभी दबाव बनाकर तो कभी बहला फुसलाकर लड़कियों का धर्म परिवर्तन करवाया जा रहा है.
A sea of protesters gathered outside the Gurdwara in Srinagar last evening, demonstrating against 2 incidents of alleged forced conversion of Sikh girls. Protests have now also been...
She has given her statement in the High Court, which some people have... I'm yet to read a proper report on it, but we'll have it by the time, I guess, this podcast goes up. But
yes,
the other claim is that she did this out of her own will. She married someone because she loved that person, and then she converted, in love. And now she has been, because the community elders were so upset, she's been quote unquote returned back to her parents and gotten married off to a Sikh man. As we talk about hold of religion, I mean, for us, it's not, possibly we all come from families where maybe our parents are liberal enough to accept. I mean, religion doesn't have such a strong hold on us, but for so many people, and especially women, it still continues to be this, thing that controls you completely. I mean, I can't imagine for so many
As a community, religion completely
so
controls
many people
us.
marrying outside religion is so hard, made so difficult. People have to play with their lives often.
So, okay, we can touch upon that, but I'm sure this podcast, considering it's taken us 3 months to record part 2, by the time this is online, many weeks at least would have passed since this incident Manisha's talking about. So, we're going to talk about religion again in part 2, because a lot of things that were left incomplete. Much of episode 1, Mehraj and me and many of us did discuss about how it has been used as a tool to rule. In fact, that has been its most predominant impact in the world historically. Is that mixing inevitable or desirable?
Intertwining of religion and politics is inevitable. I believe that. And the reason is you give human being hierarchies, they will exploit it. And while religion pretends to be the repository of values, it is ultimately the repository of power. And yes, I also agree that relevance of religion in politics on a macro scale has come down. Because if you look at centuries before us, then in Indian context, you don't get to hear, you don't get tales, you don't get stories or references from untouchables, right? They were not even considered in that context. They were not written about, spoken about. They were something people didn't want to acknowledge. And if you look at Europe, the holy wars, all of us know about it. So yes, the relevance of religion has come down, but intertwining of politics and religion is inevitable, because these are old power structures which are slowly fading away.
We have old text, old scriptures of different religions. So they have been interpreted, misinterpreted, reinvented, over a period of time. Now that has become a popular culture. And this popular culture is not one, unfortunately. There are many religions. So there are mini theater of conflicts all over. What Mehraj was saying, I don't think the faith has anything to do with logic. I think if you look at the logic, then I would rather look at the science, the evolution theory and all. How things get misinterpreted over a period of time, how things get changed, mutilated, and then a new culture comes up. Not just one culture, many cultures, and they are always in conflict with each other. And that's what religion is.
I'm more inclined to the Advait concept of God, which is that you are God. And I think one of the prime goals of that philosophy is to realize that you're God, basically. Moksha is that. It's for the Atma to realize that you're not different from Brahman. And for that, I think self-realization requires a lot of challenges. It also means ironing out, your own shortcomings. And I think suffering is an inevitable part of that. Health, physical suffering, emotional suffering, or whatever. So I think, and it's also caused because of you. There's no God up there who is making this happen.
A child born with a tumor is how responsible? How?
I mean, I think at one level it can be very cruel, a very base explanation of this is karma.
I mean, this has sort of become kind of a stereotype that all believers basically rely on faith. But that's not the case. I mean, to have faith, to believe in God, you have to first understand that God exists. I mean, I'm talking about, like I discussed earlier, because most of us don't even engage with these questions. But if you were to engage with this question, if you were to really think about God, so first you have to understand that there is a God, and that you can only do through logic. For example, in like my religion, if the entire thing was believe in God, then the entire Quran would have been one verse, believe or otherwise, whatever. But that's not the case. There's a whole theology. There's a whole book of over 6,000 verses. And every other verse says, don't you taqulun, don't you look around you, don't you understand, don't you want to reason, why don't you use your logic? When it talks about understanding God and understanding your purpose in life and things like that. So it's not like it just says believe, and if you don't believe, you'll go to hellfire. That's not the case.
Me and Mehraj, while we are both most similar in both of us are pure believers, black and white believers, that just because I believe, I don't believe that gives me the answers. I think a lot of it is not logic. It is just instinct, like playing football or cricket or anything else. Some of it is just instinctive. Why did you do that? I don't know. But that's just, while I was running, I leaned right because that's what I do. And some people don't. Some people can't put their foot in front of the other. So I think it's instinctive. But I do think that after you die, you confront a pure version of yourself who you are accountable to.
That was just a sneak peek because this episode is behind a paywall. If you want to hear the entire episode and more amazing podcasts like Let's Talk About and NL Hafta, subscribe to Newslaundry. Support independent media, support Newslaundry.
The subscription model is something that keeps Newslaundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.